I love Nicolas Cage, but even I'll admit that in the last few years he's made some, let's say, questionable decisions about what projects he'll be involved in. What you might not know is that he's probably taking on a lot of these roles because he holds the rare distinction of being a person who was bankrupted by a dinosaur. Welcome to 30 Days of Dinovember, where we're sharing 30 dinosaurs with big stories. Today's spotlight is a dinosaur called Tarbosaurus. Now, if you're looking at the skull behind me right now, you may say, that looks a hell of a lot like T-Rex. And you'd be right. Tarbosaurus is T-Rex's closest known relative. This here is the first specimen of Tarbosaurus that was ever discovered. It was discovered by Russian paleontologists working in Mongolia, and it was named in the 1950s. They initially thought it was so similar to T-Rex that they actually called it another species of Tyrannosaurus, so they called it Tyrannosaurus bataar. But nowadays, most paleontologists think that there are enough subtle differences between this and T-Rex that it should get its own name, so that's why we call it Tarbosaurus now. Tarbosaurus fossils are really common in Mongolia. Even when it was named, there were already a few specimens known, and nowadays, between museums in Poland, Russia, and Mongolia, there are more fossils of Tarbosaurus known than any other tyrannosaur. We've even got nearly a full growth series. This specimen here is a juvenile that was originally given a different name, but it's now known to be a juvenile Tarbosaurus. And this specimen here, which was discovered fairly recently, is the youngest known tyrannosaurid fossil on Earth. We don't have anything younger than this. We think this individual was only 3 years old when it died. However, Tarbosaurus being so common has a real downside, and that downside is that it's easy for fossil smugglers to find its remains in Mongolia, smuggle them out of the country, and sell them on the black market. A lot of people don't know this, but the United States is one of the only countries where it is possible to privately collect and sell fossils. In Mongolia, fossils are considered national heritage objects, and so they're property of the government no matter where you find them. Mongolia is such a large country with such a small population that it's really difficult to police all of the areas where you can find fossils, and fossil smugglers do go out into the Badlands, find Tarbosaurus specimens, and sell them on the black market, usually marketing them as Tyrannosaurus bataar because it inflates their perceived value. The Tarbosaurus skeleton that I'm showing you right here was one of these dirty specimens. It was smuggled into the United States in the early 2000s, and it was eventually seized by the US government and repatriated to Mongolia after it was the subject of the best court case that's ever existed, called United States versus one Tyrannosaurus bataar skeleton. Prior to this case, Tarbosaurus bataar skulls and skeletons had been fairly commonly available in US fossil markets, and many well-intentioned people had bought these fossils not knowing that they had dirty histories and were technically illegal specimens. Nicolas Cage was one of these people. He actually beat Leonardo DiCaprio in an auction to buy a Tarbosaurus skull, and he wound up returning the skull to Mongolia in 2015 after learning that it was illegally collected. We also know that Nick Cage paid quite a lot of money for that skull, and when he returned it, he didn't get reimbursed for the value. And so it does seem likely, based on the timing and the fact that he's had these well-documented financial troubles, that Nicolas Cage's bankruptcy was partially caused by Tarbosaurus.